Warning: this story contains shocking twists that will leave you speechless. You won't believe what happens at the end. The sky splits open as Elena Rodriguez plummets through clouds, the helicopter's rotors fading above her. Her scream tears through the roar of wind, but no one can hear it. No one except the man who just pushed her out, her husband of 15 years. Marcus Blackwell. Her body twists in free fall, the ground rushing up at terminal velocity as fragments of her life flash before her eyes. Their wedding day, his smile when he received the $3 million insurance policy, the cold shift in his eyes this morning. 3,000 feet of emptiness separates her from the earth below. The gold wedding band glints on her finger as she claws desperately at nothing but air. Time stretches impossibly as gravity claims her. Below, the patchwork of Devil's Canyon National Forest expands, greens and browns growing more distinct with each passing second. Elena's mind races faster than her falling body. Just hours ago, she had stood in their Malibu kitchen, a cup of coffee warming her hands while Marcus suggested this anniversary helicopter ride. "See the coastline from above," he'd said with that charming smile that had first won her over at a gallery opening 15 years earlier. "It'll be romantic." Now his final words before the push echo in her mind. "I'm sorry, Elle. This is better for both of us." The casual diminutive, Elle, the same nickname he'd used when they first fell in love, when she believed the wealthy investment banker saw beyond her skin color, beyond her humble beginnings in South Central. She had believed him when he said their differences didn't matter, that love transcended all boundaries. Now, as the earth rushes to meet her, she understands too clearly that some boundaries aren't so easily crossed. But Elena Rodriguez doesn't die that day in 1998. If you're watching this video, hit subscribe now and comment where you're watching from. You won't want to miss what happens next. The impact should have killed her instantly. The doctors would later call it statistically impossible that she survived the fall. But sometimes the universe has other plans, especially for those who aren't meant to be forgotten. While Marcus Blackwell celebrates with his mistress in their Malibu home, opening champagne with hands that had just pushed his wife to what should have been certain death, Elena's broken body is discovered by a teenage hiker in Devil's Canyon National Forest. Tyler Washington. 17 and troubled, had been skipping school again, wandering deep into trails his classmates avoided. His father, a park ranger with 30 years of experience, had warned him about venturing this far alone. But Tyler never listened, until the day he heard what sounded like a branch snapping, followed by a weak moan that wasn't quite human. Following the sound, he discovers a woman so broken and bloodied, she barely resembles a person. Her body is twisted at impossible angles against the forest floor, half buried in disturbed earth and pine needles. "Holy shit," Tyler whispers, dropping his backpack. Hey, can you hear me?" His hands tremble as he reaches for his cell phone. No signal. Of course there's no signal. His father had told him that too. The woman's eyes flutter open, deep brown against skin several shades darker than Tyler's pale complexion. Blood has dried in tight coils of her hair. When she tries to speak, only a gurgle of red emerges. "Don't try to talk," Tyler says, surprising himself with how steady his voice suddenly becomes. "I'm going to get help, I promise." He places his water bottle near her lips, allowing just enough moisture to prevent her from choking. The woman's eyes lock with his, pain and confusion giving way to something else. Recognition, not of Tyler himself, but of what's happening. He can see the moment she remembers falling. Tyler removes his jacket, draping it carefully over her body, mindful of limbs bent at unnatural angles. "My name's Tyler," he says, feeling a need to fill the terrible silence of the forest. "Tyler Washington. My dad's a ranger here. He taught me some first aid, but..." He trails off, looking at her catastrophically injured body. No first aid course could prepare anyone for this. The woman's fingers twitch, and with visible effort, she moves her hand just enough to touch his shoe. The gesture feels significant, deliberate, a human connection in the midst of unbearable pain. I have to leave to get help, Tyler explains, hating the words as he says them. There's no signal here, but I swear I'll come back. I swear. Her eyes close. Not in death, he hopes desperately, but in acknowledgement. Then Tyler does something he's never done before. He runs toward home instead of away from it. The forest, usually his refuge from a world that never made sense after his mother's death, becomes an obstacle course. He crashes through underbrush, leaps over fallen logs, slides down embankments too steep for careful navigation. The 3 miles to the ranger station have never felt so far. His lungs burn, side cramping viciously, but he doesn't slow down. David Washington is checking maintenance reports when his son bursts through the station door, sweating and gasping for breath. Tyler, what the hell? Woman, Tyler chokes out between desperate gulps of air. Hurt bad. The old ridge trail. She fell. She fell from the sky, Dad. David's expression shifts from confusion to focused urgency. He's seen his share of emergencies in 3 decades of ranger service, but something in his son's wild eyes tells him this is different. Medevac, he says to his colleague, already reaching for the radio. Bill, get search and rescue moving. Possible fall victim. Severe trauma. He turns back to Tyler. Show me. Detective Antonio Santos rubs his temples as he stares at the incident board in the cramped precinct office. 23 years on the force, and he's never seen a case quite like this. The helicopter rental receipt with Marcus Blackwell's signature. The life insurance policy taken out just 6 months ago. The credit card statements showing purchases of champagne and women's jewelry that never made it to Elena's jewelry box. The weather report showing clear skies on the day Marcus claimed sudden turbulence caused his wife to fall while taking photographs. He didn't even wait a day before calling about the insurance, Santos mutters to his partner, Detective Jennifer Park. Said he was processing his grief by handling the paperwork. Rich white guy in Malibu with a black wife, 20 years his junior, Park responds, tapping her pen against her notepad. You know how many red flags that already raises with insurance investigators. Don't make assumptions, Santos cautions, though his gut tells him she's right. We need evidence, not hunches. The financial angle is solid, Park continues, ignoring his warning. Blackwell Investment Group took a serious hit in the Asian market crash last quarter. Their client newsletter downplayed it, but my cousin works in finance. Says Blackwell was hemorrhaging both clients and cash. Santos nods. Money, the oldest motive in the book. What about the mistress angle? Isabella Chen, 28, interior designer. Met Marcus Blackwell when she redecorated their Malibu house last year. Park flips through her notebook. Neighbor reported seeing her car at the Blackwell residence less than 2 hours after Marcus reported his wife's accident. Before the body was even found, Santos notes. Before anyone had even started looking, Park corrects. According to the pilot's statement, Blackwell didn't want to circle back to confirm where exactly his wife fell. Said, and I quote, "It would be too traumatic to see her like that." Convenient, Santos says, studying the map of Devil's Canyon National Forest pinned to the board. The search area marked in red covers, nearly 10 square miles. No way they find her in time. The phone on Santos's desk rings. He answers it, his expression shifting from annoyance to shock. She's what? When? He scribbles frantically on a notepad. Keep this quiet. No, not even the attending staff. I'll be there in 20. He hangs up and turns to Park, disbelief written across his face. She's alive. Blackwell's wife. That's impossible. The fall was what? 3,000 feet? Apparently impossible isn't what it used to be, Santos says, grabbing his jacket. And she's conscious. How the hell? Forest Ranger's kid found her. Some kind of miracle. Trees broke her fall. Then she landed in an area with heavy ground cover from recent rains. Still broke nearly every bone in her body, but her vital organs are somehow intact. This changes everything, Park says, already gathering her notes. If she can testify, if she remembers, Santos cautions, and if she survives the next 48 hours. The doctor said it's still touch and go. As they head for the door, Santos pauses at the incident board, looking at Marcus Blackwell's smiling face in a society page photo. The man stands confidently at a charity gala, one arm around his wife's waist. The perfect couple. He has no idea she's alive, Santos realizes. Let's keep it that way as long as possible. In the private hospital room at UCLA Medical Center, Elena Rodriguez lies encased in medical equipment. Both legs in titanium braces, her pelvis reconstructed with metal plates, 12 broken ribs, a punctured lung, shattered shoulder, and miraculously, only minor brain trauma. The doctors attribute her survival to a combination of factors that bordered on miraculous. A thick canopy of trees that broke her fall in stages, landing at an angle that distributed the impact, and softened forest floor from recent rains. Dr. Kinnaman Kavita Sharma, the trauma surgeon who spent 14 hours piecing Elena back together, checks monitors and adjusts medication drips. In 30 years of medicine, I've never seen anyone survive a fall like this, she tells the detectives. We had to invent new surgical approaches just to address the complexity of her injuries. Santos approaches the bed cautiously. Mrs. Blackwell, I'm Detective Santos. This is Detective Park. If you're able, I'd like to ask you a few questions. Elena's eyes, the only part of her that seems to move without pain, shift toward him. She tries to speak, but her voice emerges as a rasp. A nurse provides water through a straw. He pushed me, she whispers after a moment, each word a battle against pain. Marcus pushed me out. You're certain? Santos asks, though he already knows the answer. We argued about the insurance, about Isabella. Her breathing becomes labored. His hands on my back, his voice saying, I'm sorry, Elle. Right before her monitor begins beeping rapidly, the nurse steps forward. That's enough for now. Santos nods, patting Elena's hand gently. We'll get him, Mrs. Blackwell. Rest now. In the hallway, Dr. Sharma confronts them. Her condition is still extremely precarious. The next round of questioning needs to wait at least 48 hours. We may not have 48 hours, Park argues. If her husband realizes she's alive and talking, then post a guard, Dr. Sharma interrupts. But I won't have you jeopardizing my patient's recovery. Doctor, Santos says, his voice lowering, the man who did this to her is currently walking free, probably planning his next vacation with his mistress using the insurance money he expected to collect. Mrs. Blackwell is our only witness, and she'll be no witness at all if she dies from the stress of your interrogation, Dr. Sharma responds firmly. 48 hours, detective, not a minute sooner. As they walk toward the elevator, Park sighs. She's right. We need Elena alive and stable. I know, Santos admits. Let's put an officer on her door. No visitors except medical personnel. And let's get a warrant for Blackwell's arrest based on what we already have. The DA will argue it's circumstantial. Then we'll make the circumstantial evidence so compelling he can't say no. In the gleaming kitchen of the Blackwell's Malibu home, Marcus pours another glass of Macallan 25, his third of the evening. At 52, he still maintains the physique of a man who runs every morning and plays tennis twice weekly. His silver-flecked hair is perfectly trimmed, his casual linen shirt precisely the right balance of expensive and effortless. Across the marble island, Isabella Chen swirls white wine in a crystal glass. At 28, she's built her interior design business, catering to Los Angeles' elite. But becoming Marcus Blackwell's wife will catapult her to a different social stratum entirely. Are you sure they're not suspicious? She asks, not for the first time today. The detectives seem to ask a lot of questions about the helicopter tour company. Marcus gives her the indulgent smile he reserves for moments when he finds her concerns charmingly naive. It's standard procedure. Darling, an accident investigation always looks at equipment, weather conditions, pilot error. Our story is airtight. Our story, Isabella repeats, emphasizing the word. I wasn't there, Marcus. You made sure of that. For your protection, he reminds her. The fewer people who knew about the helicopter tour, the better. Grief-stricken husbands don't take their mistresses along when spreading their wife's ashes. Isabella winces at the word mistress. When will we know about the insurance policy? These things take time, Marcus says, swallowing his irritation. A few months at most. The company has been notified. The claim has been filed. Now we wait while they do their due diligence. $3 million is a lot of due diligence. $3 million is barely enough to get the Belize project off the ground. Marcus corrects her. Once we've laundered it through the Cayman Shell Corporation, we'll need to find additional investors. Isabella sets down her glass, suddenly uncomfortable with the conversation's direction. You never said anything about laundering money or shell corporations, Marcus. It's all perfectly legal tax avoidance, he assures her smoothly. Just business terminology that sounds more sinister than it is. The doorbell rings. He isn't expecting anyone. Through the security monitor, he sees two detectives holding badges up to the camera. His pulse quickens, but he composes himself before opening the door with a practiced expression of grief. Mr. Blackwell, I'm Detective Santos, and this is Detective Park. We have some follow-up questions about your wife's accident. Marcus's hand tightens imperceptibly on the doorframe. Of course, though I've told you everything I know, it's still difficult to talk about. We understand, Park says, her expression revealing nothing. May we come in? Marcus hesitates, aware of Isabella's presence in the kitchen. Actually, I was just heading out. Perhaps we could reschedule. This won't take long, Santos insists, already stepping forward, forcing Marcus to either back up or create an awkward confrontation on his doorstep. Marcus leads them to the living room with its panoramic ocean views. Family photos line the built-in shelves. Marcus and Elena on their wedding day, on vacations at charity galas. A perfect couple. Beautiful home, Santos comments, studying a photo of Marcus with his arm around Elena at a fundraiser. The insurance payout must be substantial. I haven't even thought about that, Marcus replies, his voice cracking appropriately. Money is the last thing on my mind. Really, Park interjects. You called Meridian Insurance at 8:42 a.m., the morning after your wife's fall, before her body was even found. Marcus's expression falters momentarily. My financial advisor suggested handling these matters quickly to avoid dealing with it during more intense grief later. Sound advice, Santos nods, walking to the window. Especially since you'd need the money for your new project in Belize, the one you and Isabella Chen have been planning. The color drains from Marcus's face. I don't know what you... Marcus Blackwell, you're under arrest for the attempted murder of Elena Rodriguez, Santos states, turning to face him. Marcus bolts toward the kitchen. Park tackles him before he reaches the drawer that likely contains a weapon. As she cuffs him, Santos continues reading his rights, but Marcus has gone silent, his perfectly constructed world collapsing around him. How did you know? He finally asks as they lead him to the police car. We didn't, Santos answers honestly. Not until just now, but your wife did. And unlike what you planned, she lived to tell us. Marcus's composure shatters completely. That's impossible. No one could survive that fall. Apparently, Mrs. Blackwell is stronger than you gave her credit for, Park says, securing him in the back seat. As they drive away, Santos notices Isabella Chen watching from the kitchen window, her expression a complex mixture of horror and relief. In the hospital room, Tyler Washington sits awkwardly in a chair beside Elena's bed. His father had insisted he visit. She asked for you by name, David had said. The doctors think it might help her recovery to thank the person who saved her life. But sitting here now, watching the broken woman struggle for each breath, Tyler feels like an imposter. He hadn't saved her life. Not really, he just found her. Just done what anyone would do. You're Tyler, Elena says, her voice stronger than it had been with the detectives, but still barely above a whisper. Yes, ma'am. Tyler Washington. Don't call me ma'am. She manages the ghost of a smile. Makes me feel old. Sorry, Mrs. Blackwell. Elena, she corrects. Just Elena. Tyler nods, unsure what to say next. The machines beep in rhythmic counterpoint to the silence. They told me what you did, Elena finally continues. How far you ran to get help. How you came back with the rescue team. Tyler studies his hands. I just found you, that's all. You found me, Elena agrees, when no one else was looking. The simple statement hangs between them, an acknowledgement of a deeper truth neither fully understands yet. The doctors say I'll need months of rehabilitation, Elena continues. Maybe years. They're not sure I'll ever walk normally again. I'm sorry, Tyler says inadequately. Don't be. Walking is secondary. I'm alive. Her eyes find his, surprisingly clear despite the pain medication. Do you know what it's like to fall 3,000 feet, Tyler? To have that much time to think about dying? He shakes his head. It clarifies things, she tells him. What matters, what doesn't, who matters. She pauses, gathering strength. I'd like to ask you something. Anything. Will you visit me again? During my recovery? I don't have family here. My parents are gone, and my sister lives in Atlanta. Marcus, she trails off. Well, I'm alone now. The request surprises him. You want me to visit? You're the person who found me when I was broken, Elena says. Sometimes that's enough to create a connection. Tyler thinks of his mother's death 3 years earlier, how cancer had hollowed her out while everyone watched helplessly, how no one had been able to save her. Perhaps this is a second chance of sorts, a cosmic balancing. I'll come, he promises. The news of Marcus Blackwell's arrest spreads quickly through Los Angeles' social circles. The wealthy investment banker who tried to murder his wife for insurance money. The racial dynamics add another layer to the media coverage. White husband, black wife, allegations of trophy wife syndrome, and the ultimate betrayal. Tyler Washington watches the coverage from his father's living room, still processing his role in saving Elena's life. His father, David, sits beside him, his ranger uniform still on from his shift. You did good, son, David says, his voice gruff with pride he rarely expresses. Real good. Tyler shrugs, uncomfortable with praise. I just found her and stayed with her. Got help. That's more than most adults would have done. David hesitates, then adds, Your mother would have been proud. The mention of his mother, 3 years gone from cancer, brings unexpected tears to Tyler's eyes. He blinks them away quickly, but not before his father notices. They're saying she wants to meet you, David says. The woman you saved. Tyler shifts uncomfortably. I already went to see her at the hospital. David looks surprised. You didn't mention that. Didn't seem important, Tyler mumbles, though in truth, the visit has occupied his thoughts constantly for the past 2 days. And how was it? Tyler considers the question. Weird. Good weird, I guess. She asked me to keep visiting her during her recovery. David raises an eyebrow. And will you? I said I would. His father studies him for a long moment. This isn't about your mother, Tyler. You know that, right? You couldn't save her. That wasn't your job. I know that, Tyler says too quickly. Do you? Because since she died, you've been running from everything. School, friends, responsibilities. Maybe even from me. David sighs. Finding this woman, helping her, it's a good thing, but it doesn't change what happened to your mom. This has nothing to do with Mom, Tyler insists, standing abruptly. Elena asked me to visit her. That's it. David nods, recognizing his son's defenses rising. Okay, just be careful with yourself. Trauma creates strange bonds. Tyler walks away without responding, but his father's words follow him. Trauma creates strange bonds. Is that what this is? Some kind of trauma response? He doesn't think so. When he found Elaine in the forest, broken but alive, he felt something he hadn't experienced since before his mother's illness. Purpose. The preliminary hearing for Marcus Blackwell versus the state of California draws media attention from across the country. The combination of wealth, attempted murder, racial dynamics, and the miraculous survival creates a perfect storm of public interest. In the courthouse bathroom, Marcus adjusts his tie in the mirror. His attorney, Preston Montgomery, hearing one of Los Angeles' most expensive criminal defense lawyers, checks his watch impatiently. Remember what we discussed, Montgomery cautions. Sympathetic but dignified, confused but cooperative. You're a man wrongfully accused, struggling to understand the nightmare you found yourself in. I know how to present myself, Preston, Marcus says coolly. I've been managing public perception since before you passed the bar. This isn't a shareholders meeting, Montgomery snaps, and the DA isn't some financial journalist you can charm with market projections. The evidence is substantial, Marcus. We need the judge to see you as human. The evidence is circumstantial at best. My wife's testimony is that of a traumatized, brain-injured woman who could have jumped herself. The insurance policy was her idea. She was always anxious about financial security given her background. Montgomery's expression darkens. Don't. Don't ever say that in court. Implying that her race or economic background made her unstable will sink us faster than anything else. Marcus scoffs. It's the truth. Elena grew up in South Central with a single mother. She never got over the insecurity. The truth is irrelevant, Montgomery hisses. Perception is everything. And a wealthy white man blaming his black wife's background for his current predicament is a perception we cannot afford. In the courtroom, Elena sits in a wheelchair beside the prosecutor's table. 6 months since the fall, and her progress has been remarkable but limited. The specialized wheelchair accommodates her still healing body. Her face bears the lingering evidence of reconstructive surgery. A nose slightly different than before, cheekbones more pronounced, but her eyes are clear and focused directly on the door through which Marcus will enter. Behind her sits Tyler Washington, who has visited her weekly during her ongoing recovery. At 18 now, he started community college classes in between his visits to the rehabilitation center. His father sits beside him, still in his ranger uniform, having come directly from his shift. The bailiff calls for all to rise as the judge enters. Then Marcus is brought in, and despite her preparation for this moment, Elena's breath catches. 15 years of marriage, and the man who tried to kill her still has the power to affect her physically. Not love, not anymore, but something primal. The body remembering danger. Marcus's eyes find hers immediately. He'd been prepared to maintain his grieving husband facade, but seeing her alive, sitting upright, watching him, visibly shakes him. His attorney places a steadying hand on his arm. The charges are read: attempted first-degree murder, insurance fraud, conspiracy to commit fraud, and a host of lesser charges. Marcus pleads not guilty to all counts. As the preliminary evidence is presented, Elena watches her husband's face. The man she'd once loved enough to ignore the warnings from friends and family. He only sees you as exotic arm candy, her sister had cautioned when they'd first started dating. Men like that don't marry women like us. But Marcus had seemed different, genuinely interested in her art career, supportive of her ambitions, seemingly blind to the raised eyebrows their relationship caused in his social circle. Now, watching him perform the role of wrongfully accused husband, she sees what she'd been blind to before: the calculation behind every expression, the practiced sincerity, the fundamental emptiness. The hearing concludes with the judge finding sufficient evidence to proceed to trial. Bail is set at $5 million, a sum that would once have been trivial for Marcus, but now, with his assets frozen and his company under investigation, presents a significant obstacle. As Marcus is led away, he looks back at Elena one last time. She meets his gaze steadily, refusing to flinch. It's a small victory, but after months of surgeries and excruciating physical therapy, she'll take what she can get. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarm around her wheelchair. Tyler and David create a protective barrier while the prosecutor makes a brief statement. Mrs. Rodriguez is grateful for the court's decision today and looks forward to the full trial, where she will have the opportunity to testify about the events of April 17th. She asks for privacy as she continues her recovery. From the back of the police transport vehicle, Marcus watches the media scrum through the window. His mind races with new calculations, adjustments to his strategy. If he can't discredit Elena's testimony directly, perhaps he can undermine her character more subtly. The media loves a scandal, and Elena's past contains enough material to work with. The struggling artist from South Central who'd caught the eye of a wealthy businessman, the rumors of her previous relationship with a musician with drug problems, the miscarriages that had left her emotionally unstable. Yes, Marcus thinks as the vehicle pulls away, this setback is temporary. He's faced worse odds in business and emerged victorious. This is just another negotiation, another deal to close, and Marcus Blackwell has never lost when it really mattered. 6 months later, Elena Rodriguez sits in her wheelchair in the sunroom of her rehabilitation facility. The doctors are amazed at her progress, though they maintain she'll never walk unassisted again. Multiple surgeries have restored some function, but her body will forever bear the evidence of her fall. She stares out at the garden, remembering how she once took simple movement for granted. The sound of approaching footsteps makes her turn her head, the only motion that comes without pain now. Tyler enters awkwardly, hands shoved in his pockets. At 18, he's grown taller since their first unexpected meeting in the forest. Mrs. Rodriguez, I'm... Tyler, Elena interrupts with a warm smile. We're past formalities, don't you think? He grins and takes the chair opposite her, noticing the physical therapy equipment surrounding them. How are you feeling? Alive, she answers simply. Thanks to you. I just found you. You found me, stayed with me, ran 3 miles for help, and then directed the rescue team back. That's not just anything. Tyler looks down at his hands. I was skipping school. If I'd been where I was supposed to be, I wouldn't have found you. Elena laughs, then winces at the pain it causes. Sometimes our wrong turns lead us exactly where we need to be. I've been learning that lesson myself. They talk for nearly an hour. Tyler tells her about his college plans, forestry and emergency medicine, inspired by both his father and his experience finding her. Elena shares her own plans, a foundation she's starting with part of the insurance money that ironically still paid out, since Marcus's plot was discovered before he could collect. The foundation will help survivors of domestic violence, she explains, particularly women of color. I ignored the signs, she admits. The control, the isolation from my family, the subtle comments about my background. I believed his version of love because it came with security I'd never had. But he seemed to have everything, Tyler says, confused. Why would he risk it all? Elena's expression grows distant. Marcus doesn't see risk the way normal people do. To him, everything is a calculation. When we met, I was an asset. Young, exotic, artistic, different from the women in his social circle. I made him more interesting by association. And then I became a liability. She sighs. My art career never took off the way he'd expected. The miscarriages meant no children to complete his perfect family image. And then the financial problem started. She pauses. I discovered later that his firm was in serious trouble. The Asian market crash hit them hard, and clients were pulling out. Marcus needed liquid capital quickly, and I was worth more to him dead than alive. The matter-of-fact way she says this disturbs Tyler. How can you talk about it so calmly? Because I survived, Elena says simply, and surviving gives you perspective. Marcus thought he was writing the end of my story. Instead, he was just beginning a new chapter. As their conversation draws to a close, Elena reaches for his hand. I've made a decision, Tyler. My foundation needs a board of directors, and I'd like you to be on it. Not just because you saved me, but because I believe you have the perspective we need. Tyler stares at her in disbelief. I'm just a freshman in college. You're the person who saw value in helping someone when you had every reason to walk away. That's exactly who I need. I don't know anything about foundations or boards or any of that. Neither did I until 6 months ago, Elena points out. We'll learn together. Tyler hesitates, thinking of his father's warning about trauma bonds. But this doesn't feel like trauma. It feels like purpose. Okay, he says finally. I'll do it. Elena smiles, squeezing his hand. Good. Our first meeting is next week. We're going to change lives, Tyler, starting with our own. If you're still watching, you're invested in this story now. Hit subscribe and let us know in the comments where you're watching from. The courtroom falls silent as Elena Rodriguez wheels herself to the witness stand. The trial of Marcus Blackwell versus the state of California has drawn national attention. Marcus sits at the defense table in an expensive suit, a team of lawyers surrounding him. He avoids looking at his wife. Mrs. Rodriguez, the prosecutor begins, in your own words, please tell the court what happened on April 17, 1998. Elena's voice is clear and unwavering as she recounts the events. The anniversary trip in the helicopter, Marcus's insistence that she lean out for photographs of the coastline, the sudden pressure of his hands on her back, the fall. And in the moments before the fall, what did your husband say to you? He said, I'm sorry, Elle. This is better for both of us. Then he pushed me. Mrs. Rodriguez, did you and your husband argue before the flight? Yes, I had discovered emails between Marcus and Isabella Chen. They detailed not just their affair, but their plans to use my insurance money to start a resort in Belize. And when you confronted him, he denied everything, said I was being paranoid. That morning, before the helicopter ride, he was unusually affectionate, said he had a surprise planned. Her voice finally breaks. I believed him. Even after finding those emails, 15 years of marriage made me want to believe him. During cross-examination, Marcus's attorney attempts to paint Elena as unstable, suggesting she might have jumped deliberately or fallen accidentally. Mrs. Rodriguez, isn't it true that you had been treated for depression following your second miscarriage in 1996? Objection, the prosecutor shouts. Relevance? Goes to the witness's state of mind, Your Honor, the defense attorney counters. I'll allow it, but tread carefully. Counselor, the judge warns. Elena's composed expression doesn't waver. Yes, I sought therapy after our loss. Many women do. It has no bearing on what happened in that helicopter. And isn't it true that you had expressed dissatisfaction with your marriage in these therapy sessions? I expressed grief over our lost child and concern that my husband seemed more relieved than devastated. The therapist's notes, which I'm sure you've reviewed, also show that by the end of my sessions, I was committed to making our marriage work. The defense attorney shuffles his papers, momentarily thrown by her composed response. Mrs. Rodriguez, isn't it possible that in your emotionally fragile state, you might have misinterpreted your husband's actions in the helicopter? Perhaps he was trying to prevent you from falling rather than causing it. Elena's eyes narrow slightly. Detective Santos, is it customary to call insurance companies to collect on your spouse's life insurance policy before their body has even been found? Objection, the defense attorney snaps. The witness is not answering the question. Sustained, the judge says. Mrs. Rodriguez, please answer only the question asked. Elena nods. No, it is not possible I misinterpreted my husband pushing me out of a helicopter with both hands while saying this is better for both of us. Some actions are unambiguous, counselor. A murmur ripples through the courtroom. The defense attorney, recognizing he's losing ground, changes tactics. Mrs. Rodriguez, let's discuss the financial arrangements in your marriage. Isn't it true that you signed a prenuptial agreement that limited your claim to marital assets? Yes, that's correct. And isn't it also true that just 3 weeks before the helicopter incident, you consulted with a divorce attorney about challenging that prenuptial agreement? A flash of surprise crosses Elena's face. I met with an attorney friend to discuss my options after finding evidence of Marcus's affair. It was an informal consultation, not a planned legal strategy. But you were exploring ways to access more of your husband's wealth than the prenuptial agreement allowed, correct? I was exploring my rights as a spouse who had discovered infidelity, Elena corrects firmly. There's a difference. Is there? The prosecution wants us to believe your husband had a financial motive to harm you. But couldn't the same be said in reverse? If Marcus died, you'd receive not just the insurance money, but his entire estate, prenuptial agreement notwithstanding. Objection, the prosecutor interjects. Counsel is testifying, not questioning. Sustained, the judge agrees. Mr. Montgomery, ask a proper question or move on. The defense attorney nods. Mrs. Rodriguez, one final question. Given your difficult recovery and the emotional trauma you've experienced, is it possible that your memory of events in the helicopter has been influenced by subsequent knowledge of your husband's affair and financial dealings? Elena takes a measured breath before answering. I have 13 titanium plates in my body. I spent 6 weeks in a medically induced coma. I will never walk normally again. These are daily physical reminders of what happened. My memory of Marcus's hands on my back, of his words in my ear, of the look in his eyes just before I fell. Those memories are carved into me as permanently as the surgical scars. So no, counselor, my memory has not been influenced. It has been seared in. The courtroom is utterly silent when she finishes. Even Marcus, who has maintained his composed facade throughout the trial, looks momentarily shaken. No further questions, the defense attorney says quietly. As the trial progresses, evidence mounts against Marcus. Financial records show the extensive planning. Cell tower data places him with Isabella Chen just hours after reporting his wife's accident. The helicopter pilot testifies that Marcus had requested a flight path over the most remote section of Devil's Canyon National Forest, away from usual scenic routes. Isabella Chen, granted immunity in exchange for her testimony, describes how Marcus had methodically planned the murder over months. At first, I thought the Belize resort was just a dream we shared, she testifies, avoiding Marcus's gaze. Then he started talking about using insurance money to fund it. I thought he meant business insurance, corporate policies. When I realized he meant Elena's life insurance, she falters. I should have gone to the police. I didn't want to believe he was serious. But you continued the relationship, the prosecutor points out. Yes, Isabella admits. I convinced myself he was just talking, that it was some kind of twisted fantasy. Rich people say outrageous things sometimes, and you learn to smile and nod. When did you realize it wasn't just talk? Isabella's composure cracks. When he called me that morning, he said, "It's done." Just that. It's done. And I knew exactly what he meant. Marcus eventually takes the stand in his own defense, a decision his attorneys advised against. His testimony is polished, emotionally calibrated, designed to elicit sympathy. I love my wife, he insists, his voice catching appropriately. The affair was a terrible mistake, but I would never, ever harm Elena. During cross-examination, the prosecutor approaches with a manila folder. Mr. Blackwell, are you familiar with a company called Oceanic Holdings Limited? Marcus hesitates. I believe it's one of many companies in our investment portfolio. In fact, it's a shell corporation you established in the Cayman Islands 3 months before your wife's fall, correct? Yes. The same corporation that received a wire transfer of $250,000 the day after Mrs. Rodriguez's supposed accident? That was a routine business transaction, Marcus replies smoothly. The timing was unfortunate, but coincidental. Coincidental, the prosecutor repeats skeptically. Like the coincidence of taking out a $3 million life insurance policy on your wife 6 months before attempting to kill her? The policy was Elena's idea, Marcus counters. She was always anxious about financial security. Mr. Blackwell, your former executive assistant testified that you specifically requested information about life insurance policies that would cover accidental death without a waiting period. Was that Elena's idea too? Marcus's jaw tightens, but he doesn't respond. The prosecutor isn't finished. Let me ask you something else, Mr. Blackwell. On the morning of April 17th, you told the helicopter pilot that you wanted to fly over the most remote section of Devil's Canyon. Why? Elena wanted to see the wilderness areas. She was an artist. She appreciated natural beauty. Really? Because your wife's sister testified that Elena was actually afraid of heights and had expressed reluctance about the helicopter ride. She was nervous but excited, Marcus says, his composure beginning to crack. And yet you insisted. You even signed a waiver absolving the helicopter company of liability in case of accidents during aerial photography. A waiver the pilot found unusual, since most couples don't plan to lean out of helicopters during scenic tours. I wanted good photographs of our anniversary trip. The prosecutor walks back to her table and retrieves another document. Mr. Blackwell, do you recognize this email sent from your personal account to Isabella Chen 2 weeks before the helicopter ride? She reads aloud. The plan is set for the 17th. The window of opportunity is narrow, but the fall is steep enough. By the 18th, we'll be free to start our new life. Trust me, darling. No one survives a drop like that. The courtroom erupts. Marcus's face goes white. That's taken out of context, he stammers. We were discussing a business venture. A business venture? The prosecutor's voice rises. You expect this jury to believe you were discussing a business venture when you wrote no one survives a drop like that 2 weeks before pushing your wife out of a helicopter? I didn't push her. Then explain the email, Mr. Blackwell. Marcus looks frantically at his attorney, who can only shake his head helplessly. The carefully constructed defense is crumbling. I want to invoke my Fifth Amendment right. You've already waived that right by taking the stand, Mr. Blackwell. Answer the question. The silence stretches. Marcus's breathing becomes rapid, his face flushed. Finally, in a voice barely above a whisper, he says, She wasn't supposed to survive. The courtroom explodes. The judge pounds his gavel, calling for order. But the damage is done. Marcus has essentially confessed. His attorney immediately requests a recess. And as the bailiffs surround Marcus, Elena watches the man she once loved completely unravel. There's no triumph in her expression, only a profound sadness for the 15 years she gave to someone who never truly saw her as human. By the time the jury delivers their verdict, guilty on all counts, Marcus's carefully constructed facade has crumbled completely. The jury deliberates for only 4 hours. As the verdict is read, Marcus remains eerily still. The foreman announces, guilty of attempted first-degree murder, guilty of insurance fraud, guilty of conspiracy to commit fraud, guilty on all charges. The judge sets a sentencing date for 3 weeks later, but remands Marcus to custody immediately, citing him as a flight risk. As he's led away in handcuffs, he finally looks at Elena, his expression a mixture of hatred and disbelief that she had outsmarted him by simply surviving. Elena watches him go, feeling not triumph, but a complicated grief. 15 years of her life had been invested in a man who had seen her as nothing more than a financial asset to be liquidated when convenient. The verdict doesn't heal her broken bones or erase the nightmares, but it does offer something essential: validation. Her truth, spoken aloud, has been heard and believed. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarm again, but this time Elena is prepared. With Tyler at her side and her newly hired foundation director behind her, she makes a brief statement. Today isn't about vengeance, but accountability. For 15 years, I believed I was in a partnership. I was wrong. What I experienced was ownership disguised as love. Too many women make the same mistake, especially women from backgrounds like mine, who are taught to be grateful when someone from privilege chooses us. She pauses, gathering strength before continuing. The Elena Rodriguez Foundation will work to help women recognize the difference between love and control, between partnership and ownership. Because surviving isn't enough. We deserve to thrive. As the media shouts questions, Tyler wheels her toward the waiting car. You okay? He asks quietly. No, Elena answers honestly, but I will be. 5 years later, the Elena Rodriguez Foundation has grown into a powerful advocate for domestic violence survivors. Its headquarters in downtown Los Angeles houses not just offices, but transitional housing, legal services, and counseling facilities. Elena, now using forearm crutches instead of a wheelchair for short distances, leads a board meeting in the main conference room. At 39, her face shows the lingering effects of her injuries, but also a strength that commands respect. Tyler Washington, now 23 and finishing graduate school, sits to her right, reviewing quarterly reports. The new outreach program is reaching women we weren't connecting with before, Elena explains to the board, particularly in communities where domestic violence is unreported due to cultural pressures or distrust of authorities. The foundation's growth has been remarkable, from a single office with 3 staff members to a comprehensive organization with branches in 4 cities. Their approach is unique, combining practical support with fundamental empowerment. Women who enter the foundation's programs receive not just shelter and legal assistance, but education, career counseling, and ongoing community support. Our recidivism rate is the lowest in the country, Elena continues, pointing to a slide showing their success metrics. 93% of women who complete our program do not return to their abusers. The national average is closer to 60%. After the meeting, Elena and Tyler share coffee in her office, which overlooks the city. Dad's retiring next month, Tyler mentions. 35 years as a ranger. Can't imagine the forest without him. He raised a good son, Elena responds. How's your thesis coming? Almost done. Psychological impacts of wilderness rescue on first responders. My advisor thinks it could be published. I know someone who'd be perfect to write the foreword, Elena smiles. If you're interested. Their easy camaraderie has developed over years of working together. Tyler's initial weekly visits during Elena's recovery evolved into regular involvement with the foundation, first as a volunteer, then board member, and now as director of their youth outreach program. The foundation work had given him direction when he needed it most, and in return, his perspective as a young man has been invaluable to the foundation's approach. Their conversation is interrupted by Elena's assistant. Ms. Rodriguez, there's someone here to see you. She doesn't have an appointment, but she's insistent. A woman enters hesitantly, in her 40s, expensively dressed but with an air of desperation. Mrs. Rodriguez, I'm Isabella Chen. The name hangs in the air between them. Marcus's mistress, the woman he'd planned to build a new life with, using money from Elena's death. Tyler stands protectively. I'll give you privacy. No, Elena says firmly. Stay. She turns to Isabella. What can I do for you, Miss Chen? Isabella's composure cracks. He's being released. Early parole for good behavior. The notification came yesterday. Elena's grip tightens on her crutch. When? 3 weeks, I'm afraid. I think he blames both of us. She removes an envelope from her purse with trembling hands. He sent letters, threatening ones. You came to warn me? Elena asks, studying the woman carefully. Isabella nods, tears forming, and to ask for help. I have nowhere else to go. Elena studies the woman who had once been complicit in planning her death, the woman whose testimony had helped convict Marcus, but who had also willingly participated in the affair that led to Elena's near death. 5 years ago, Elena might have turned her away without hesitation. But 5 years of helping women escape destructive relationships has taught her to recognize the signs of genuine fear. Show me the letters, Elena says finally. The pages inside are filled with Marcus's distinctive handwriting, elegant, controlled, and deeply disturbing in content. One passage reads, when our paths cross again, and they will, I'll make sure of it, both of you will understand the true meaning of falling. Elena reaches for the phone on her desk. Angela, please prepare a room in the East Wing Transitional Housing and contact Detective Santos. He's on our security advisory board now. Tell him it's urgent. After Isabella is escorted to the housing wing, Tyler turns to Elena in disbelief. You're helping her? After everything? She was another one of his victims, Tyler. Different circumstances, but a victim nonetheless. Elena moves to the window, looking out at the city. Besides, keeping her close might be our best chance of staying one step ahead of Marcus. You think he'll really come after you? I know him better than anyone. His ego won't allow him to accept that I survived, that I've thrived. In his mind, I cheated him out of what he deserved. Then we'll be ready, Tyler says with determination that reminds Elena of that day in the forest when he'd promised to get help. The day Marcus Blackwell is released from California State Prison, a news crew waits outside the gates. He emerges wearing a tailored suit that his attorney brought for the occasion, looking older but still carrying himself with the confidence of a man accustomed to privilege. Mr. Blackwell, do you have any comment on your early release? A reporter calls out. Marcus offers a practiced smile. I'm grateful for the opportunity to rebuild my life. The justice system has determined I've paid my debt to society. Have you had any contact with your ex-wife? Another reporter asks. A flash of something dangerous crosses Marcus's face before he composes himself. That chapter of my life is closed. I wish Elena well. What the cameras don't capture is the way Marcus's hands clench into fists at the mention of her name, or the meticulously folded newspaper clipping in his pocket. A recent photo of Elena at a foundation fundraiser, standing with forearm crutches, smiling triumphantly. In the weeks that follow, Marcus establishes a modest apartment in Venice Beach, meets regularly with his parole officer, and begins rebuilding connections with former business associates willing to overlook his conviction. On the surface, he's the model of rehabilitation. Privately, he spends hours studying the Elena Rodriguez Foundation's public events calendar. The foundation's security team, led by retired Detective Santos, monitors Marcus's movements through legal channels. His parole conditions forbid him from coming within 500 feet of Elena or Isabella, but everyone involved knows restraining orders are just paper. He's too smart to violate parole, obviously, Santos explains during a security briefing. He's playing the long game, establishing himself as a reformed man while planning his next move. What do we know about his finances? Elena asks. He had money hidden offshore that the original investigation never found, Santos confirms. Not millions, but enough to live on while he rebuilds. And he's making connections with former clients, positioning himself as a financial consultant. Survival skills, Elena notes. Marcus always lands on his feet. Not this time, Tyler insists. We're prepared. At the foundation, security measures have been enhanced. Santos implements protocols for all staff. Elena never appears at public events without plainclothes security. Isabella Chen has been moved to a confidential location after providing detailed information about Marcus's previous threats. Despite these precautions, Elena refuses to live in fear. He took enough from me already, she tells Tyler during their weekly strategy meeting. He doesn't get to take my freedom too. The Foundation's annual gala approaches, their biggest fundraising event of the year. Elena insists on attending, despite Santos's concerns that it's too public, too predictable. It's been highlighted on our website for months, Santos argues. If he's planning something, this would be when he'd do it. Then we use it to our advantage, Elena counters. If he's watching, let's give him something to see. The night of the gala, the ballroom of the Beverly Wilshire Hotel glitters with Los Angeles' elite. Elena arrives in a stunning gold gown designed to accommodate her leg braces, her crutches custom-made to match. Tyler accompanies her as her assistant, though he's now the Foundation's director of outreach programs. From across the street in a rented room with a clear view of the hotel entrance, Marcus watches through binoculars. His parole officer believes he's at a job interview in San Diego. The gun beside him is unregistered, purchased through channels from his prison connections. His plan is simple: wait until the event ends, approach Elena's car with a sob story about needing to make amends, and finish what he started 6 years ago. What Marcus doesn't know is that Santos has anticipated exactly this scenario. Plainclothes officers monitor every building with a sightline to the hotel. Hotel security has Marcus's photo. And most importantly, the woman Marcus is watching enter the hotel isn't Elena at all. It's an undercover officer of similar build, wearing Elena's distinctive gold dress and using her custom crutches. The real Elena watches the security feed from a room inside the hotel, her heart racing as she sees how convincing her double appears. He'll recognize it's not me once he gets closer, she worries. That's the point, Santos explains. We want him to approach. The moment he makes a move, we have him for parole violation at minimum, attempted murder if he's carrying a weapon. Which he will be, Tyler adds grimly. He's not the type to make the same mistake twice. As the gala proceeds inside, Marcus grows increasingly impatient across the street. Through his binoculars, he can occasionally glimpse Elena through the ballroom windows, but never clearly enough for a clean shot. He'll have to stick to the original plan. 3 hours later, the gala begins winding down. Marcus takes his position near the valet stand, concealed behind a decorative hedge. His hand rests on the gun tucked into his waistband. The first guests begin to emerge. Marcus watches intently for the gold dress, the distinctive crutches. Finally, he spots her, moving carefully down the steps with Tyler's assistance. Marcus steps out, his expression transforming into one of practiced remorse. Elena, I'm sorry to approach you like this. The woman turns and Marcus freezes. It's not Elena. Before he can retreat, officers converge from every direction. Marcus Blackwell, you're under arrest for parole violation, an officer announces, forcing him to the ground. As they handcuff him, the real Elena emerges from the hotel, flanked by security. She approaches slowly, deliberately, stopping just far enough away to be safe. You still don't get it, do you, Marcus? She says, her voice carrying in the sudden silence. You never saw me clearly, not during our marriage, not when you pushed me from that helicopter, and not now. Marcus lunges toward her despite the restraints, his face contorted with rage. You should have died. You ruined everything. No, Marcus, I survived. There's a difference. She turns away as officers drag him to a waiting police car, his shouted threats fading into the night. Later in the Foundation's offices, Elena sits with Tyler, Santos, and the district attorney. He'll serve the remainder of his original sentence, plus additional time for the parole violation and the illegal weapon, the DA explains. With his demonstrated intent, he won't be eligible for parole again. It's over then, Tyler says, relief evident in his voice. Yes and no, Elena responds, her expression thoughtful. His chapter is over. Ours continues. Santos checks his watch and stands. I should get going. My daughter's flight lands at midnight. The one who just graduated medical school? Elena asks. Santos nods proudly. First doctor in our family. She says your foundation inspired her to specialize in trauma recovery. After he leaves, Ryan and Elena sit in comfortable silence for a moment. I've been thinking, Elena finally says, about expanding the foundation's work, opening centers in other cities. Tyler smiles. I had a feeling you weren't done yet. The day you found me in those woods, I made a promise. If I survived, if I got a second chance, I would make it count. Not just for me, but for everyone who hasn't yet found their voice. You've kept that promise, Tyler assures her. It's not enough, Elena says, her expression intensifying. Every day someone else is falling through the air, Tyler. We need to be there to catch them. But as they sit there making plans, Elena's phone buzzes with a text from an unknown number. She opens it, and her face goes pale. What is it? Tyler asks, immediately alert. Elena shows him the screen. The message reads, Did you really think it would be that easy? The game isn't over. It's just beginning. M. That's impossible, Tyler says. Marcus is in custody. We just watched them take him away. Sanos's phone rings. Elena's rings simultaneously. It's the police station. There's been a mistake, the officer on the line says, his voice tense. The man we arrested tonight, it wasn't Marcus Blackwell. Elena's blood runs cold. What do you mean it wasn't him? The fingerprints don't match. DNA doesn't match. We ran facial recognition. It's not him. Whoever we arrested, he's not your ex-husband. Tyler and Elena exchange horrified glances. Then who did we arrest? Elena demands. We're working on identification now, but Ms. Rodriguez, there's something else you need to know. We just reviewed security footage from the prison. The man released 3 weeks ago. That wasn't Marcus Blackwell either. The room spins. Elena grips her crutch for support. What are you telling me? She whispers. We're not entirely sure yet, but it appears someone switched places with Marcus Blackwell in prison. The real Marcus has been gone for months, maybe longer. We have no idea where he is. Another text arrives on Elena's phone. This one includes a photo, Elena herself, taken just minutes ago through the office window. The message below it reads, I've been watching you build your little empire, Elle. Impressive. But everything you've built, it's all because of me. You owe me everything, and I'm coming to collect. See you soon. Your loving husband. To be continued. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell. Drop a comment below with your theories about what happens next. Where has Marcus really been all this time? Is Elena in more danger than ever? Part 2 coming soon.